This week we'll be learning Parshat Pinchas, our weekly Devar Torah brought to you by Be There Israel and Or Chadash. So last week, hopefully you watched last week, we discussed how Pinchas was able to stop the plague in Israel that had broken out because of the out-of-hand scene that was happening in the camp. And he did that by taking a romach, a spear, and killing Zimri and Cosby. But that actually stopped the plague and, in a sense, saved all of Israel. So this week's parsha begins by God rewarding Pinchas with a brit shalom, a covenant of peace. So the question that is asked by many commentators is, how does one merit a covenant of peace based on doing an act of violence? It's a very good question, and hopefully we will address it. The Slonim Rabbi in Netivat Shalom gives the following explanation. He's not the only one, which is that really Pinchas was acting from great love of the people. His act was an act of violence, but his motivation was a plague had broken out and thousands of people were dying. And he wanted to save the people. It was out of love of the people that he acted in this manner. And we see this in the root of the letters for romach. If you take the same letters and you switch them around, they spell out rachem, have compassion. From that same root, we have the word for womb, rechem, and that's an obvious connection that we always talk about. There's no compassion in the world more than a mother for her children. And where is the child nurtured? Is in the womb, in the rechem. So here we see in the letters themselves a proof text for this idea that Pinchas merited a covenant of peace because his motivation was really peaceful. But then we have the paradox is, how do you get still? Even having said that, still the peace was accomplished through violence. So we could see many examples of this in our private lives and in history. That many times wars have to be fought in order to bring peace. Now that sounds paradoxical, but if you have an enemy that will not listen to reason and will only stop when being stopped, then one has no choice but to confront the enemy with the hope that that will bring a time of peace together. We see this throughout history, and the most recent was World War II, where two of America's greatest enemies and the world's enemies, Germany and Japan, they're America's best friends now. But that wouldn't have happened without having to confront them. Because sometimes there are forces that one has no choice but to confront